I have trauma. We all do. And sometimes it makes us act like a fool. I know it's made me act that way, but I've learned to heal some of my trauma with Jay's help. So today we're going to talk about trauma stored in the body. And I don't really quite understand how that can happen. So I'm hoping today I'm going to have one of those aha moments on film that I love so, so much. So Jay, what does trauma actually mean?
Yeah, it's a good question. Most people don't really define it. We just throw the word around. It sounds like a crazy, super drastic, intense word. And I think that causes problems in people's understanding because it really just boils down to bad experiences or experiences that you were unable to properly cope with at the time.
So the experience itself is trauma.
Not exactly. Trauma refers to the leftover side effects of having a bad experience or an experience you were unable to cope with.
All right. So it's like the fallout.
Yeah.
Okay. As somebody that has had traumatic experiences in my life, and I've repeated what happened in my head a million times. So to me, the after effect, the trauma is in my head. So how can you explain how can it be in my physical body if it's like a mental thing?
Yeah. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but your body has intelligence. Your body is like a second brain. Your conscious mind processes like 40 or 50 megabits of data per second or whatever. And your body and senses, all of your senses, process like 40 million megabits of data per second or 50 million, like a huge, ridiculous amount more.
Okay. I didn't know.
And it would be overwhelming if you had to consciously handle and deal with all that data, right? Flashing lights, moving objects, loud sounds, all sorts of environments, dust particles, temperature of the room, temperature of your skin, internal body parts, external body parts, all these things. Like your conscious brain is not processing all of that. Some other brain is processing all of that.
So that's the body.
Yeah, this is why we have body wisdom and body intuition. And this is why you can have a gut feeling. This is why you can intuit things and feel things. And just like any brain, your body can have side effects and fallout, like we said, trauma, the same way your mind can.
So then in the same way that we have like intrusive thoughts or repeated thoughts, like I said, I repeated the trauma over and over in my mind. Like I replayed it and had that feeling in my body multiple times long after the actual event happened. So you're saying the same thing happens within our body then. I guess I just answered my own question when I said like I feel it. So if I replay it in my mind, then I have that feeling of fear or anxiety or just painful aches or whatever within me. So this is how our body stores it?
Yeah, kind of. Our bodies are like complex networks of glands and tissues and nerves and muscles and ligaments and all these kind of things. And trauma can be stored anywhere, but mainly in the nervous system.
Okay.
There's two key parts to our nervous system that really matter here. The sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic one is the one that you're conscious of. When something major happens, you go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode.
Yeah.
And you're sort of hyper alert. And this sympathetic nervous system is only supposed to kick in once in a while because you shouldn't be running for your life all the time.
Yeah.
And the parasympathetic one is all the unconscious stuff, all the automatic breathing, automatic heart pumping, automatic digestion, all this stuff. And when you're chilled out, you're in relax and digest mode, and the parasympathetic nervous system is doing its thing, healing your body, processing everything, all good. But that will get taken over when it's fight or flight time or freeze or fawn. And so your nervous system is processing all those 40 million megabits of data that are coming at you through your senses all the time. And if it's functioning well and properly, it's helping you navigate life. It's helping you cope with every situation that comes up. If it's operating smoothly, all the signals are flowing properly, all the data is being managed properly, all your behavior and actions and reactions are being handled in a healthy, proper manner. But if it's too intense an experience and your nervous system isn't able or ready or trained or practiced to cope with it properly, there's going to be side effects. There's going to be fallout. There's going to be some leftover trauma. And it could be something simple like you were deprived of security as a child.
Yeah.
Well, this is simple and common. Many children have a feeling of being deprived of security, or they don't feel safe in a certain situation. I don't know if it's the end of the world. It happens everywhere. I mean, I would like for it not to happen, but it's hard to point a finger and be like, this is the worst thing that anyone has ever done ever.
Of course not. Yeah.
Okay. It happens for one reason or another. A child feels deprived of security, or deprived of bonding and connection, or deprived of love, or deprived of something. Even in the world's most dedicated homes and fully developed nations, like richest person on earth, their child is still going to end up feeling deprived of something. So when that happens, ideally their nervous system would process it in a reasonable manner. But oftentimes they're unable to cope. They don't know what to do. They go into fight or flight mode or freeze mode, and they stay alert for a long period of time. And their sympathetic nervous system is kicked into overdrive and hyper mode, and it takes its toll. And there are some trauma effects, because now the nervous system that was sending all these signals builds up some scar tissue, or like is short-circuited, or signals don't flow as well anymore, or the next time that thing happens, we overreact or hyperreact, and it builds up and builds up, and now you have a habitual trauma response.
Okay.
Does this make sense?
It does. It really does. So now I understand a little better how we hold onto this in our physical body.
Yeah, humans have electromagnetic fields. Like our thoughts send electrical signals through the nervous system, and our emotions and our feelings like put out magnetic fields. They've measured it. And so like any system, there can be flaws in the system. The system can slow down and become sluggish. The system can get blocked or clogged. And trauma is really just referring to those kind of things.
Okay. So then thank you for the explanation. So how do we know then? How can we recognize when trauma is stored inside our body and we're having issues versus, it's just a repeated thing that we're thinking about?
Great question. And I do not know if you want to be asking me this, because I am the worst for this. This whole topic is brutal for me because I live in my head most of my life. And I was raised to think intellect is everything, and logic and genius and all this kind of stuff is what we should shoot for. I didn't learn anything about body wisdom or being in your body or associating with your body or being aware or conscious of body traumas or micro traumas stored inside your nervous system or any of this stuff. So I'm learning too, right? And I need to practice this big time. If you wanted to stumble on Jay's weakness, you probably just hit the nail on the head, right?
Yeah, when I said this was going to be the topic, I emailed you the topic and you were like, oh, well, I'm going to need to work on this a little bit. This is a great topic.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't planned out or anything. It was just following through the book. So you wrote about this. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say. So,
how do you know if you have trauma stored in your nervous system?
Yeah, if it's trapped in
your body tissues.
Yeah.
Well, how do you know if you have something traumatic stored in your mind, in your consciousness?
Because it replays over and over.
Okay.
Can't stop thinking about it.
Okay. So it replays over and over. Mm-hmm. And how do you know if you have trauma externally in your body, like in your cells?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
If you go to the hospital and you go to the trauma ward, what do you see everywhere?
Oh, like people are hurt.
Yeah, they have gaping wounds, missing limbs and stuff.
Yeah,
the trauma ward is the trauma ward. So with trauma in your conscious mind, you can detect it because you have unpleasant thoughts on loop.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Mm-hmm.
And with traumatic injuries, you have a constant, continual symptom, physical symptom of the trauma until it's healed, right?
Right.
And so how do you know if there's trauma stored in your body, in your nervous system, and so on?
I'm assuming it'll come out in some physical way based on what you're saying.
Yeah, but your nervous system controls your behavior, right? It's a behavioral trauma. Mainly an emotional trauma. This is your nervous system controls your feelings and your behavior. It controls your breathing, your heart pumping. If you react to a threat, if you pull away from a threat, your nervous system is doing this.
So like panic attacks and depression and...
So with your mind trauma, you notice constant repeated thoughts, unpleasant repeated thoughts. This indicates the trauma.
Yeah.
With the injury, you see constant bleeding or constant scarring or constant scabbing or constant infection, a constant physical loop of the symptoms. Mm-hmm. This is how you know the trauma is there.
Right.
Until it's healed and dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
And so with behavioral trauma, nervous system trauma, emotional trauma, what sort of looped symptoms would you be looking for?
Anxiety, panic attacks, depression, acting out, just
behavioral
out.
Yes, behavioral looped symptoms or emotional looped symptoms, right? Doesn't it make sense? The conscious mind shows looped thoughts. Physical body shows looped infections or looped bleeding or looped symptoms. And your nervous system shows looped behavior or looped emotions. Mm-hmm. And so how can you tell if you've been traumatized? Well, you react the same way every single time to the same thing every single time. And your nervous system just does it on loop until you heal it. So when I get into a league game and I snap at my teammates and I get all tilted because they didn't play well and I lost the game, and then I turn around and I'm like, man, I'm seeing red and what happened? And I can't believe I became such a mean person. Why am I snapping? Where's this behavior coming from? What can I know about myself?
You have some sort of stored trauma.
Yeah. And when I'm safe and sound and relaxed and I can't let someone touch me, or I get like nervous if someone tickles me or something, and I react in a really like awkward way to something that should be fine and safe and normal. Why am I reacting this way with this weird behavior? What can we say about me?
There's trauma stored.
Yeah, so I'm fucked up, yo.
It's true.
I got mad trauma. But being homeless for 2.5 years will do that to you. Having every partner abandon you will do that to you. I think I've handled it pretty well, but coping is not healing. And so handling it pretty well is not the great way to be a great human. You got to heal that trauma. And so I'm working on it.
Okay.
But does this answer your question of how can we tell if we have trauma?
Yeah.
Well, is your breathing shallow all the time? Do you wake up in the night all the time? Is your bladder being weird all the time? Is your digestion being weird all the time? Do you have symptoms on loop? Do you have behavioral symptoms on loop? Do you find it hard to trust people all the time? Are you defensive all the time? These are not normal behaviors. You did not come to Earth as a human to be this way. And it is traumatic stuff acting up. And trust me, I know, because I live my whole life with these traumas, out of touch with my body, not even knowing that I have behavioral traumas. Because you get used to them and you live with them. Like someone living with a limp or living with poor vision. Like there are vision coaches. There are surgeries you can get. There are ways to heal your vision. Are you just going to live with the trauma for your entire life? You can. And you can live a fine, reasonable life. But you're living at 90%. You're not going to be a pilot.
Yeah, true.
You're not going to, see those whales on the horizon on the distance. You're not going to be living 100%. You're living on 90%. And if you have more trauma, you're living on 80%. If you have more trauma, you're living on 70%. So do we want to heal them or do you want to cope? Do you want to live with them and manage them?
I spent a lot of time of my life not coping or managing and having constant panic attacks, constant depression, just constant anxiety about my entire life. I felt miserable and horrible inside. And now, from everything you're saying, it's because of the trapped trauma within my nervous system that was causing me to act like this and feel like that. Was once I admitted the trauma and removed myself from the environment and started healing myself in other areas, that stuff all went away. Like I don't have those issues anymore. I mean, they've been cropping up a little bit here and there lately. I'm having trouble sleeping. Issues with my skin, issues with anxiety. So
your body's trying to tell you something. Your nervous system is trying to tell you something. And it's going to keep telling you on loop forever.
Until I heal it.
Yeah.
And process it and really understand what it is and stuff. Because
what happens with a cut or a wound if you keep poking it and prodding it every now and then?
It won't heal.
Right. And when you have behavioral trauma, and then you go put yourself in the same situation. You go talk to someone who makes you feel unsafe, or you go have another financial issue, and then you tense up again. It's just like poking the wound. Like you can live with it, but it's going to keep cropping up all the time until you heal it, or until I heal mine, or until the whole world heals all of theirs.
Yeah, right. Well, this is why a lot of people, they are admitting now to depression and anxiety. This is a very common thing now, where it was so hush-hush for so many years. Like I started taking Prozac when I was 13, and I remember my mother telling me not to tell anyone. Don't tell anyone you're in therapy. Don't tell anyone you're taking the Prozac, because it was a shameful thing. Now everyone's like, oh, what are you on? What's your dosage? And like, because it's become a normal thing, but people are recognizing the symptoms, but not really the trauma that caused it to happen and keep it trapped in the body for them to continue this over and over and over and over again. And it's interesting how, though I've healed a big part of those traumas and I spent years now not having any of those issues, I'm now in the last, 2 weeks, something like that, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, having these issues, just tiny little bit at a time cropping up for me. So that means there's something else that I have not noticed that for some reason is now coming up. So this is super helpful. And I did not expect this conversation to, when we started this topic, for it to go this way. So for you to admit all that stuff and or for me to even connect what was happening, like the not sleeping stuff. And thank you. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
Okay. So I want to go back to what I mentioned, my skin. You said that the trap trauma comes out in the nervous system and it's behavioral symptoms that express themselves. What about physical symptoms? Can this come from a different kind of trauma or same trauma? How is this? Because I think that the eczema issues I'm having now have to do with also the sleeping stuff.
Yeah. So when I say behavioral, I mean the behavior of your body, right? So It could be the major behaviors that you do, like how you react to someone talking to you, or what actions you take, or what steps you take. Do you fight or do you flight, or do you tense up or seize up, etc. But it could also be the automatic behaviors of your body. Like a lot of people their breathing becomes shallow when they talk about money.
Yes.
Happens over and over all the time. Their breathing gets really shallow into the chest. It's not normal. This is not healthy. This is not great. This is not how a human being is supposed to live. You're supposed to breathe gently and fully into the diaphragm when you're in a relaxed environment. And a conversation about money should be a relaxed environment. There is no life or death here. No one is coming to hurt you. There is no tiger after you. There is no fight or flight here. Just chatting and gabbing away, chin wagging about a subject. You should be able to have a conversation about money.
Right.
But if you have trauma stored in your nervous system, somatic trauma, whatever they call it, the behavior of your breathing may change. And so now you have behavior on loop. Every time money comes up, your breathing gets shallow. Mm-hmm. Or you may have behavior where if you put in a good day's work, you can't get to sleep at night. Or if you have 5 cups of coffee, you can't get to sleep at night. Your nervous system is trying to tell you something. There is trauma stored here. You are not ready to deal with this situation. You're not handling it in a proper, healthy, mature way. Your body is not handling it well. You may need to heal something in this area first before you can ever have these experiences again. If you want to be an energized, super happy, productive worker, you may have to heal some things in your attitude about work, or heal some things in your body, or heal some things in your emotions, or heal some things in your behaviors before you can pull off those long days of work. If you want to be a coffee guzzler, maybe you can, but you may have to heal some things in your metabolism. You may have to heal some things in your nervous system. You may have to heal some things in your conscious approach to coffee. You may have to adjust your coffee or your diet or something else in order to have all this coffee. So your body's going to keep telling you and showing you through its behavior. And so a skin breakout or eczema or acne or whatever, these skin eruptions can often be trauma erupting from the inside, trauma erupting from your nervous system. Mm-hmm. Your nervous system being unable to deal and process and going into fight or flight mode and spitting out a sign for you, a symptom. Just like the rest of your body will show you a symptom if it's not properly cared for, or if it got hurt or cut or injured or bludgeoned. And just like your mind will show you a symptom with repeated unpleasant thoughts if you haven't dealt with something.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So when I say look for behavioral symptoms, it could be the behavior of your cells, the behavior of your digestion, the behavior of your breathing, your respiratory system.
Okay. I got you. All right. Thank you. That was very helpful. I appreciate it.
As a human, technically, all of those systems should be operating fairly well.
Right. Yeah. So people that have chronic illness and people that have autoimmune stuff, and do you think that this is possibly one of the reasons why.
Yeah, if you look into it, a lot of people cure that stuff with somatic experiencing or somatic therapies, EMDR, stuff like this. I'm not saying it's the be all end all cure.
No, yeah.
But a good, healthy number of people have had results from processing body trauma. And then it cures these other diseases and symptoms that they've been having, these chronic things that have been lasting there. And some of them are passed on through generations. Like if your family has a long history of financial trauma, you might end up having shallow breathing every time you talk about money.
Right.
Just you were born with it.
That happened to
Maybe
me,
as a child, as an infant, even the first time you heard the word money, you still just got triggered by it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I was triggered about this since birth. It's like, well, yeah, behavioral trauma has been passed down to you. You got to break the generational curse eventually, right? Like, it doesn't matter where the behavioral trauma came from or why your nervous system can't deal with it. The real question is, are you going to do something about it? Are you going to address this trauma? Are you going to heal the trauma in your nervous system and become a full, healthy, 100% functioning human being?
Yeah.
And maybe we don't get there. Maybe it's too big a job, or it's too hard, or it's impossible, or you can only get to 90% and you still have that trauma when you're on your deathbed. At least you tried.
Right.
Instead of whining about it, it's like, okay, I got a trauma. Like for me, I'm trying. I'm working on mine. I know I have them. The symptoms are obvious. It's not fun for other people to be around. No one wants to be around my bullshit trauma. I want to fix it. I'm going to solve it. I'm going to get this. And I'm going to be more fun to play with in game. And I'm going to have better emotional control. And I'm going to get the hang of this. And if people want to judge me or like say I can't do it or say it's impossible, they can. But I'm the one looking into somatic therapies, right? I'm the one exploring options and cures. I'm the one looking deeper and admitting the symptoms.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I'm not trying to burden other people with my triggers and stuff.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yay. Great questions.
Okay. So once you recognize the signs and the symptoms that you have some trauma trapped in there, maybe you don't know exactly what it is, or maybe you do. How can we start to heal this? How can we become better so we feel better?
Yeah, that's the question, right?
Yeah.
The main thing is that most people are disassociated to some degree with their bodies. Mm-hmm. Most people live in a fast-paced society, intellectually focused society, who doesn't have a lot of time for the feelings of the body. If you're sick, suck it up and get to work. If you have depression, like take some meds and get back to business. If you can't talk about money,
avoid it.
Yeah, just avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can see a clear disdain for the feelings of the body. You can see a clear avoidance of body association. You can see a clear trend of people doing their best to not feel.
Yeah.
So people want to avoid the uncomfortable feelings. And if they do have them, they want to minimize and dismiss them ASAP. Yes. But minimizing and dismissing your feelings is like minimizing and dismissing the important signals from your nervous system and the important symptoms of upcoming trauma.
Okay. Our bodies are always warning us and telling us ahead of time. So for instance, to use myself as the example, before I start to break out to this point, I would get a little tingle and it would feel like a little, pinprick. It's exactly how it feels like before anything actually erupts onto my skin.
Yeah. And if you pay attention to that, you can cut it off right there, start coping, start healing, start managing, start adjusting, right? You can associate with this symptom, this signal from your nervous system. Right.
Yeah.
But most people won't.
No, of course.
Like, I'll get distracted. I better work more. I'm going to lose myself in my work. I'm going to go play a game. I'm going to go watch Netflix for like the next 4 hours. Anything but think about this.
Yeah. And I'm very in tune with my body now versus where I was 4 years ago. And even I still am like, well, it's just one little pinprick. It's no big deal. Like I'll put some cream, I'll be fine.
Yeah, because even people who think they're in tune with their body aren't. Like, it's super rare. It's so crazy rare to find someone who's truly in tune with their body. I'm not. I wouldn't say you are. I don't even think like most of the practitioners you can find, the therapists, massage therapists, and the somatic people and the physio people and the rehab people, I don't think they're even in tune with their own bodies. It's so freaking rare in society. So I think everyone watching should just admit, like, I'm not fully in tune with my body and I need to work on this because we don't have a society that supports this. No one is good at this. I would love to find someone who's good at this because I could learn from them. So if anyone out there watching is actually truly in tune with their body and they catch every symptom and every signal, they never disassociate, they never tune it out, they're always paying attention to every little sign, they can control their breathing, their heart, their bladder, their metabolism. Like, unless you're Wim Hof, I don't want to be talking about it. And even him, I'm not even sure, right? Because he had an alcohol problem and he's aging pretty fast and stuff. Like, how in tune is Wim with his body? And this is world record holder.
Yeah.
So I'm saying there is massive room for improvement. Most of us are complete trash at this. No offense. And so the main issue is disassociating from the signals of our nervous system, of our bladder, of our lungs, of our heart. Right? Of our muscles, of our ligaments. You tell me all the time, oh, you're so tense. Your muscles are so tense. There's a knot here. There's a knot there. And I'm like, what? I'm chill as hell, man. Like, I'm in the zone. I've been chilling all day. I'm probably tense right now.
Yeah.
While I do my favorite thing, like the podcast, that's out of tune with your body. That's a problem. If you've been living with tension so long, you can't even recognize it anymore. And someone else from outside has to be like, oh, there's tension here. And then when you finally push enough, I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. I'll push and massage, and you're at first you're like, and then I like work through it, and then you're like, oh wow.
Right. Yeah. But as a person, technically, I should be able to relax that myself. I don't want to put all massage therapists and chiros and stuff out of business, but technically, most of us should really be able to sense that tension and relieve it. I can do it right now if I try. A big part of it is just breathing consciously and breathing deeply into those tissues, breathing into those areas that you've been ignoring and avoiding. And so there's all kinds of ways to get back in tune with your body. Some people use meditation. Some people use progressive relaxation or body scanning. Some people use deep breathing. Some people use EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. But even back in the day, before we had all this fancy stuff, people could just hum or chant a mantra or sing, because this stimulates the vagus nerve and it vibrates and it resets the nervous system. Sometimes singing a lot is enough to cope with trauma, to heal trauma. You can use yoga or exercise or stretching. There's plenty of ways to get back in tune with your body. And it's up to each of us to find out which one or combination of them works for us. But the thing is, no matter how smart you are or how intellectual you are, you don't solve nervous system trauma or body trauma with the mind. And so I used to think, oh, yoga is fluff, stretching is fluff, exercise is fluff, whatever, deep breathing, meditation, like, come on. This stuff isn't going to magically solve my trauma, but it will, because that's where your trauma got stored. That's where all the millions of megabits of information got screwed up. It didn't happen in your conscious mind. It happened when you were young and you couldn't process too many things, or it happened at your workplace when you got overwhelmed and just spaced out, tuned out. And it stored all that excess trauma in your nervous system somewhere as a block or a short circuit or a rewire or a trigger or a habit. And now you have a traumatic response anytime the situation is even remotely similar to what it was back then, or feels remotely similar to what it was back then. And I tried to solve it my whole life with my awesome brain, right? My super smarts is bullshit. It's not going to work.
All right. Fair enough. I know that meditation and yoga have played a really tremendous part in helping to heal myself. I don't do yoga anymore. It's been a while, but meditation still now is something that I reach for when I am struggling, when I feel off inside, which now I understand why. The breathing and the Wim Hof breathing and the breath holds, those all have been super, super helpful to me. And swimming too. Swimming and moving my body out of my head and into my body has been very, very helpful.
So here's a question. When you were doing yoga more, did you sleep better? And when you were doing yoga more, did you have less breakouts? And when you were swimming more, did you sleep better? And when you skip swimming, do you sleep less? And when you skip swimming, do you get more breakouts? You see what I'm saying? If these body processes work for you and they help heal your trauma, then ditching them or skipping them should increase your trauma and the symptoms. I don't think you track it, but if you tracked it in a spreadsheet, I think you might be surprised to find swam today, yoga today, swam today, yoga today, no symptoms. Yeah. Skipped swimming, skipped yoga, skipped swimming, skipped yoga, plenty of symptoms.
It's possible. I haven't tracked it.
It would be interesting.
But it is interesting, and I'll have to pay close attention to that and track it next time. So thanks. That's a great idea.
Well, you told me. You said these things help me. So if they're helping with your nervous system trauma, somatic trauma, then ditching them should make the symptoms worse, and keeping them should make the symptoms less.
All right. Thanks.
We'll see.
We will. I'll have to update everybody then when I do track it and see how it goes. Okay, so in Eyes Wide Open, Volume 1.
Great book.
Yes. You wrote, did you know that even micro traumas can keep you stuck in life? Repeating the same loops, never moving forward. Is a micro trauma a smaller version of a trauma?
Well, if you remember, how do we define trauma? What is trauma? I made it real simple.
What happens to you after you experience something bad. Yeah. Right.
It's the fallout from bad experiences.
Right.
The side effects from bad experiences.
Right. So then the micro trauma is like a smaller bad experience. So smaller fallout.
Exactly. But it's still a bad experience.
Sure.
So maybe you tell a joke to your spouse and they don't get it and you don't know how to cope with this properly and you just get upset and pissed off and then you're like, I'm never telling a joke again. It's not the world-ending, earth-shattering abuse, but it's a micro-trauma. Now you're traumatized. You've decided not to tell jokes again. You didn't talk it out with them or get to the bottom of it. You just made a snap thing like, oh, this feels bad to my system. I want out of this situation, fight or flight. I'm done. No more jokes, right? Like, this is not a healthy response. This is a weird, traumatic.
Yeah, I guess that's why the look on my face was like, anyway, the point is I understand what you're saying. So it's just a smaller version of your fallout.
Yeah, but it could keep you on loop, not making jokes to your partner.
Right.
Or keep you on loop, avoiding that side street. Or keep you on loop, never spending money on credit ever till the end of time. Like, these are weird behaviors. Like,
right.
The world will end if you pay something on a credit card today and pay it off again tomorrow. You don't have to be this traumatized.
Right.
Like, right? A lot of times people will have this behavior. Never again. I'm never doing that again. It's like, yeah, you're clearly got some body stored trauma.
Yeah. Like a lot of times people will end a relationship and they're like, I'm never ever getting into another one again. I hate everyone. Yeah. Screw them.
Or they'll write off an entire race or something. Yeah. It's like, yeah, that's sane.
Yeah, it's true. Okay.
You're not traumatized at all. Keep it up.
All right. So how does having stored trauma, micro or macro in your body, how does this affect your life if we don't clear it out? Like we talked about like the side effects and stuff, but what if somebody is really good, we're going to use you as the example, you're really good at not showing the world you're tense. I mean, I know because I'm your partner, we've been together 4 years. I can recognize immediately when you're tense, even if I don't say anything. So how would this affect the world around if no one else knows and you're not expressing it and only your partner knows? Or how does it keep us stuck in life?
Say you have some trauma around money. I brought it up a few times this podcast because most people do have trauma around money.
I did.
So say you have some trauma around money and you go to a party and there's 100 people at the party and 5 or 10 of those people could help you with your money situation. One of them is an accountant. One of them is a money lender, like a venture capitalist. Mm-hmm. One of them is a productivity expert. One of them is an intern or a volunteer who's looking to help a business or a property owner or something. Mm-hmm. The party is full of people and a certain percent of them can help you with your money issues.
Okay.
Now, if you have trauma about money, what happens the minute you hear someone's an accountant?
Oh, right away you go into like that same fight or flight mode and you avoid the topic. I don't want to talk to this person, or you argue with them.
Yeah, something bad.
Yeah.
You leave that group and go to some other group. Mm-hmm. Or that's cool, you're an accountant, and then you go talk about something else. Mm-hmm. If they ask you anything, you steer the conversation away from your own finances. Like, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want the accountant to know how much I'm in the hole. I don't want him to know anything.
Right.
Meanwhile, he's seen it all. and he just wants to help people. It's his career. It's his business. He could get you out of that hole. Right?
Yeah.
And even more than that, if he dresses like an accountant and you can spot him from across the room, are you going to talk to that guy at all in the party?
No.
You see what I'm saying? It will keep you stuck. Your trauma around money will keep you stuck, and it will make sure you avoid that stuff. Your son wanted to play League of Legends with us, and all he had to do was ask, why are you not playing with me? And then have the conversation, and, it'd take 2 seconds, 5 seconds, and we'd be back to playing.
Yeah.
But if he has a trauma response around apologizing or having adult conversations or owning up to responsibilities or whatever, if he has a trauma around this and he doesn't know how to handle it properly, what's he going to do every time?
He's going to avoid us.
Yeah, he's going to avoid it. Exactly. So he'll talk about everything but that. So is he going to be like, hey, let's talk about League of Legends today?
No.
Right. And so how long went by? How much time went by before he actually worked up the courage to beat his trauma and get back to playing?
Like a month.
Yeah. Kid waited a month because of his trauma, because he got traumatized and he learned, like, telling adults that I made a mistake is not acceptable, or like I'm going to get beat up or punished or hated on or something if I admit that I misbehaved or whatever. And so now he goes a month without his favorite game or teammates or whatever he wants, when the proper healthy response is just to say, hey, why aren't you playing with me?
Yeah.
And he used to ask why all the time. Why is the sky blue? Why is Santa bringing presents? Why is the Tooth Fairy doing this? Why do rainbows happen? Why
all the time.
Yeah, but not for this situation. And so his normal, healthy, productive human behavior that would get him what he wants got commandeered by his trauma. And you got the same example with the joke. It's normal to have fun, jokey times with your partner, but it will get commandeered by your trauma if you let it. And then you'll never tell a joke again. And then he'll never play League again. And these people will never talk about money again.
Right.
And none of them can move their life forward. It's literally impossible. And they don't even know. They just subconsciously avoid the conversations and behaviors that would help them. They just subconsciously avoid the situations that would help them. And why did they subconsciously avoid all these productive, wonderful things that would help them? Because their nervous system's all screwed up.
Right. Makes sense.
And they can feel the trauma and they can feel the tension. And they're like, anything to avoid this.
Right.
It's like, this is not how you cure it. This is not how you heal it. And this is not how you move your life forward. So yes, trauma stored in your body will keep your life on loop.
Okay.
And most people are so out of tune with their body and so big into avoiding their feelings and their symptoms and the signals from their nervous system that they will literally do anything to avoid confronting it and healing it. And so they are intentionally keeping themselves stuck for long periods of time.
And so working on healing it, like we talked about earlier, this will help them to move their life forward. Not just healing the trauma and healing whatever, how it's coming out, how it's being expressed, whether it's panic attacks, depression, rashes, or whatever. This will help them to heal that stuff and to move the life forward. Yes?
Well, you tell me. When the dude at the party makes peace with money as a subject, or when he releases the stored up tension about money and has like a little cry on the massage table or whatever he does, what's going to happen at the party now?
Oh, well, then he'll be more open to talking about it, and he won't shut the accountant down so quickly. And
he might even be like, hey, I could use an accountant, man. I don't think I have financial chops. Maybe you could give me some advice. He'll handle it differently. When your son finally puts aside I can't talk to adults about my games trauma or whatever, then what's he going to do?
He comes ask why.
Yeah. When he finally heals his trauma, he'll get his life right back on track. And then he asks why, and then we're playing again. Yeah. Just like that. No fuss, no muss, no judgment, no nothing. I was there ready to play with him the whole time. If you realize the joke didn't land because of something that you can control, like timing or your track record, and it didn't not land because your partner has no sense of humor and hates you or whatever, what does that realization let you do? When you realize that it's just timing, it's something you can control.
Then I control it, and I can go with it or not.
Yeah, and it's no big deal. You don't need to be worried about jokes anymore.
No, it's no big deal.
Just practice your timing. Yeah. And don't make a joke about being a junkie when you just quit yesterday or something. Like you build up your track record of being clean and sober, then you can make all the junkie jokes you want.
Sure.
It makes sense.
Of course.
You got to work around your track record when you're joking with other people. Murderers shouldn't be joking about killing people when they just got off death row. It won't go over well.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's just a simple thing. But if you didn't process it clearly and properly, you might store internally in your body that jokes are unsafe and I should just be a serious person. I've met people like this. They're very serious and very tense. And if you go talk to them, eventually it'll come out that they had some problems with humor as a child or when they were younger or with a spouse or with a partner or something. And now they're traumatized by it.
Mm-hmm.
This is no way to live. And for them, it might not just be enough to talk out the trauma. They might need to get some kind of physical body therapy to release the stored tension. Because once it's past the moment and once it's out of your consciousness, it will get left and stored in your nervous system. And now there's a different way to get through it.
Right. Okay. It's really helpful. All right. So can trauma ever really be fully healed? Because I know we've talked about ways to heal it and how it's come out. And so I'm just thinking, using myself as an example, right? So I spent years with the anxiety and the depression, and then I healed whatever trauma response that was, because then it stopped. No panic attacks, no depression, no issues for many years. And then the last couple weeks, here I am facing these same things again.
You had panic attacks and depression the past few weeks?
No, but I felt some anxiety. And when I can't sleep, this is the first step to anxiety. When the sleep is very much affected, or my anxiety is very much affected by my sleep. So I know my body enough, and after this conversation, to know that this is where I'm headed.
Okay.
So does that mean that trauma that I thought I healed is still there and I haven't really healed it? Or is it mean that it's just something else and it's coming out in the same way?
So those are great questions. And I believe only you can know that.
Okay.
It could be the trauma was never fully healed. It could be that it was re-injured in a similar way.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a different kind of trauma, like a conscious mind trauma, not a body trauma. It could be a different thing showing in a similar way, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not really for me to decide.
Right.
And if you're in tune with your body and in tune with your mind, who would know?
Me.
And so if you don't know, what does that probably indicate?
That I'm not in tune enough with my body.
Or your mind, or both.
Or my mind, or both.
Right. So there's room to get more in tune here.
Of course. Even like the tiny bit of attunement, I guess. Being in tune with my body, the amount I am, can always be improved upon, like you were saying earlier. Like, I don't think anybody is really, you don't think anybody is really perfect at that. Not even Wim Hof. So yeah, like, I guess I have to go within and find that out for myself.
Yeah. And you can experiment. Like I suggested, if you swam more and tracked it, would it have an effect on the symptoms? If you did yoga more and tracked it, would it have an effect on the symptoms? You could try some kind of somatic techniques like eye movement stuff, right? The eye movement thing, like at its simplest level, is when we're looking forward and ahead, we're very focused and it's sort of hyper alert mode.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more close to the sympathetic nervous system. But if you look up and to the right or up and to the left for like 30 seconds and breathe deep, most people start to yawn or they feel like their body relax or they sigh or something, because looking up and to the left is something, or up and to the right is something you only do when you're safe. Cavemen would only do this if they were safe. You can't do this in a dangerous situation.
No.
So when you do that, you're telling your body and your nervous system, the whole vagus nerve and all of the nerve endings, I am safe. I am safe. I'm in a safe place. So I don't know if you've practiced that, but you could try it and see what happens. You can experiment with healing modalities.
Mm-hmm.
You can go on Google or Reddit and say, hey, I have these skin breakouts. Could it be a somatic issue? Could it be a body trauma issue? You could Google and look for, I'm having trouble sleeping. Is this related to body trauma of some kind, nerve trauma of some kind?
Mm-hmm.
And when you healed it before, you might have healed the mental part of it, but it could still be stuck and stored in your body and you haven't healed the body part of it. It could be related to how you care for your body and how you move your body, but it could also be related to your behavior and your emotions, how you feel in your body and how you behave towards the world.
Right.
A lot of times, if people focus on problems rather than solutions, and especially if people focus on my problems rather than helping other people solve problems,
Mm-hmm.
then they will manifest a life full of my problems.
Right.
Because we get more
Yes.
of what we focus on. And so even if you do want to heal this and you intend to have it go away, you have to be very careful what you focus on. Oh, I have this. Oh, I have this issue. Oh, I have that. It hasn't gone away. It keeps getting worse. It's mine, my problem, my issue. I have to solve this.
Yeah, because
this is not really
on the problem and not the solution.
Right. But if you looked at me and my league thing, you'd see like solution 1, solution 2. I experimented with this. I found this. I researched this. I came up with this. Now I'm writing a book about it. Now I'm learning about it. Now I'm studying it. I'm getting the hang of it. I'm going to beat it. I got this. It's all good. And I haven't given 1 second of focus to the problem, except maybe once in a while when I have a rough day and I'm like, it's still here and I don't have it the same way. And it's like, but I got this. Like, life is a game of focus, right? Mm-hmm. If you can control your focus well, you can really make some headway. If you end up focusing on obstacles or problems or negatives or my issues and my stuff and my whatever, then you get a life of my issues.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, so when we have trauma stored in our body, it means we don't feel safe, right? Like, one of the things is that we don't feel safe because otherwise we wouldn't hold on to it for whatever reason. We would have let it go and we'd be okay. And like you made the example of like looking up and to the right, this tells our body that we feel safe. That's one way. But in general, if we're storing stuff and we're feeling a lot of panic, anxiety, depression, these kinds of things, and we're expressing that trapped trauma inside, we're not feeling safe. So I really liked your example just now of looking up and to the right. It tells our body that we can feel safe. Are there other ways where we can kind of let ourselves know that we are safe, that trauma has passed, it's not a thing anymore, and now we have to find ways to feel safe within ourselves?
Yeah, there's plenty of ways. I listed some of them earlier, right? Some of those different healing modalities.
Yes.
You can look up vagus nerve exercises or vagus nerve therapies. There's like tugging on your earlobes is one of them because the vagus nerve is really close to here, close to your eyes and your sinuses and your spine and all down here. So that can help reset it. But it's a process, right? It takes practice. Nice. Yeah, it does feel nice. Of course it feels nice.
I'd never done that before, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, I was saying it's a practice and it's a process because that trauma generally gets there over time, like repeated exposure,
right?
Or it gets there in one giant spike and it's kind of big and solid and it's usually been with people for a while. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like if you play guitar and you build up calluses over time, or you go rock climbing, you build up calluses over time. Those calluses are an adaptation from the body to the trauma of strumming the chords all the time or holding the rock all the time. Mm-hmm. It's like tearing your tissue over and over. And it's like, okay, I got to get stronger. And it's helpful, but if you want to undo the calluses, it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
Like you got to put some moisturizer and be gentle and take a break from the guitar for a while. Right. And you have all these different things. Maybe you got to change your diet a little bit, teach your hands to go back to normal and to let the calluses go. Mm-hmm. We don't need them anymore. You don't have to have this scar tissue and this trauma tissue. Mm-hmm. And same for internal trauma or nervous system trauma. If you have been exposed to money trauma over and over, it's going to take some practice. You're not going to like roll your eyes up and pull on your ears and voila, I'm done. You need to be dedicated and committed. And I'm sorry, but if you've built up calluses over time, that's the reality. It's going to take some time to get rid of that.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to do it in a healthy, permanent way.
Yeah.
And so if you've built up a lot of internal calluses, internal scar tissue, and you're all hard and crunchy when you talk about money or have conversations with your spouse or make a joke or whatever it is, it may take you some practice to get over that.
Right. Okay. So like for me, one of the things that helped me before to release some of that trauma to where I could let go of the panic attacks and the depression was a lot of affirmations. Like the universe has my back.
So that's a mental solution.
I always get what I want. So I know this, I was going to say.
And it's good. I'm all for it.
So once I started the affirmations and I started to feel better, then I introduced yoga into my daily routine back then. I was doing it every day, sometimes twice a day. So between the affirmations and the yoga and getting rid of the painkillers that I was taking back then, I was able to heal my trauma, my physical trauma of fibromyalgia and rheumatoid arthritis. no longer have any of the pain that I had then. And then the mental trauma too, of the repeats of living in a place I didn't want to be, with a person I didn't want to be with, and this like over and over. So together, the mental, the affirmations with the body movement of the yoga. And then I also added going to the gym. My daughter and I were going every day. We would go to the gym together. We'd do yoga at the gym, awesome. Lift weights. And then sometimes while we were doing the yoga, we would say the affirmations out loud, or maybe I just did it when she wasn't there for whatever. But my point is the two combined was really helped me faster than anything.
Great.
Faster than any therapy or medicine or anything.
Then don't ditch it.
No, I know.
Don't ditch what works for you.
No, I understand. Mm-hmm. I just want to put that out there to everyone who may be suffering from these things. And even though right now I feel like it's starting to trickle back for me, which is why I'm having some trouble sleeping, reminding myself and telling people what I did to heal myself, I thought that would be helpful. So
yeah, absolutely.
Well,
but the best thing you can do is lead by example and go back and do it again.
Yeah. Well, that means I have to not skip swimming.
Yeah.
Because yesterday I swam and I felt amazing. I felt much better. I woke up with my hands.
Yeah, you could go today.
Better. My point is that today I woke up. Remember when we got up this morning, the first thing I said, I was like, look, my hands look so much better. They look clear. They felt better. They didn't hurt. They didn't itch. So yeah, thank you so much for helping me with this then and helping me with this now, and going deep on your own issues too, on this storing the trauma in our bodies. I did not understand the difference between the mental and the physical. I was not aware. I thought trauma was the thing that happened, not the aftermath of the thing that happened. So I learned a lot on this podcast. And when I started, I wanted to have that aha moment. Even though I didn't have like a huge aha moment, I feel like overall in general, I understand it a lot more. I understand it better. I realized how important too it is for me to go back to the things that I already know that work for me. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your help. Thank you for helping me heal. Thank you for everything. I appreciate it. So I just have one final question. Mm-hmm. Do you have any final thoughts that you would like to share with our wonderful and amazing audience?
Yeah, we live in a society where almost 100% of people are carrying around trauma of some kind. And those traumas always show out. They always affect our relationships. Traumas get stored in our body or mind, but they are displayed and revealed in our relationships and our interactions. So then we get traumatized humans re-traumatizing other traumatized humans. And it's a vicious cycle. And it makes the human race look kind of shitty. But it doesn't have to be that way. It's not natural. It's not normal. It's not how we're meant to be. It's not our purpose here on Earth. We're meant to be happy, healthy, whole, functioning humans. We're able to interrelate and communicate smoothly and easily with others, standing for our boundaries, but honoring others as well. And for that to happen, we all have to heal our trauma, guys, really. And you can't just point fingers and expect everyone else to do the healing first. Oh, they're screwed up, and oh, they're traumatized, and oh, they have issues, and oh, they're this and they're that. We have to lead by example. We have to heal our traumas first, and then show our spouses and our families and our kids how to heal theirs. And then that little family unit of healed, untraumatized people can be an example for other families and teach them how to do it. And the more we lead by example and the more we all heal our own individual traumas, the happier, healthier, more thriving society we're going to have. And it's going to be a really beautiful world. And I know we can all do it. And I know I'm not the best example. I know I have more trauma stored in my body than most people. But no matter what stage we're at, we can work on it. And hopefully soon, I'll be bragging about how trauma-free I am and how awesome I was to heal all of that. And hopefully you can do something similar for yourself and those around you. So thanks for tuning in. I love you all.
And that's why our book and this podcast is called Eyes Wide Open.
Keep rising.